everything going?
Good. How are you?
Doing so good. So happy to have you on with us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, well, we're gonna get to have you here in Texas because, oh man, do we need some live shows? And we've been waiting for this, as I'm sure you have. And it's got to feel so good to finally get back out there.
It really does. Like, even just preparing for the shows was so exciting. And, as we all stood backstage before going on, for the first show, we all just started to cry. And, then coming off stage, we all started to cry because it was just such an emotional experience to be like so many people in the same room, smiling together, feeling something together. And it just felt magical.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Texas is wide open, but I know other parts of the country and California has not been as wide open. But was your experience okay to during that time when we were locked up? Some of us got some good writing in, some good whatever. Like, what was yours like? Did you get some music done?
I did a lot of things. I did not write though. Writing was not one of them. I just kind of didn't feel super inspired to write, which is, it was the perfect time to sit down and write. We're all locked inside. But I spent actually quite a bit of time with family in the beginning, which was really nice and probably much more needed than I thought. I also learned how to do some aerial acrobatics by hanging by my hair. There's an art called hair hanging, and I hired a coach and she taught me how to do it, and performed with it once, and then I decided never wanted to do it again because it was so painful. But I did it. Check off the bucket list. Yeah, I put together a Christmas special. That was really fun. But yeah, those are some of the main things I did, and it was full of ups and downs, but altogether I feel very fortunate.
That's so cool. So tell us what we're going to get into with this show. And I understand it's a pretty big production.
I mean, I love it. I mean, it's very theatrical because that's kind of my sensibility. I love sparkles. I love costumes. I like dance and, like props. That's kind of just what makes me feel like I'm the Lindsey that was a child. Like, that's what I love and I always have loved. So yeah, it's quite theatrical, and it's it's a pretty big show. We got a lot of production and we have a lot of fun doing it. So it's kind of a very fast-paced moving show, and so I don't think there's a chance for anyone to get bored, whether they are a Lindsey Stirling fan or whether they got drugged there by their wife. I think they'll still have a really entertaining experience because the show is so diverse.
Oh yeah, and I think if anyone's seen, especially the latest video that you've done, it's you put everything that you have into these things, and which is so cool because sometimes that seems almost kind of like a lost art, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting how even nowadays you kind of think about it and it's like, is it worth it to do this stuff anymore? Because YouTube does not do what it used to do. Like, TikTok is the new king, and so sometimes it really is that battle of like, is it worth investing not only the money, which they're not cheap, but also the immense amount of time into like the production and the costuming and all the things that go into making a music video, which I'm again, to save budget, I'm super involved in. I mean, I costumed the whole last video and directed it, like edited it, I did everything. So and for me, the answer always comes back to it's worth it because I really feel like, well, one, I enjoy it. It's part of the art that I love the most. And then also it's my fans know me for that and they enjoy it still, even if it doesn't get the same gazillion views that it used to. It's like my fans still show up and they still love them. And, it's part of what I love to do.
Yeah, of course. Well, do you remember that first video that you saw, that the high concept video that made an impact on you, that maybe brought you to this place?
Let me think. First high concept video. Well, I think that I've just always liked storytelling. From the time I was a little kid, my dad would tell me stories and he would read us nighttime stories, or he'd tell us stories from his own life, stories that he'd written because he was a writer. And so I just gained this like deep love of storytelling because my dad had like a great voice and he would tell this story with all this intensity. And my first album I ever bought was John Williams' Greatest Hits, and I thought he was so cool because he was a musical storyteller and he scored Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings and Jaws and, you know, just all these iconic films. And you hear the Darth Vader theme and you immediately think of, oh, there's a villain, you know, you just know it by the music. And so I think I was first really inspired by him to be a musical storyteller. So a lot of times when I'm writing music, I'm thinking of like, what's the story? Like, where are we? And when I wrote that last one, I immediately knew. I was like, we're in some kind of a ballroom and we're going to be like mightier than thou, you know? And so I just always have a pretty distinct concept once I start writing, and then that fuels the rest of the session. I'm like, this is about pirates, or this is a Western, you know, and it makes it really fun in a writing session.
Yeah, and what's so cool too is now, of course, you've seen a lot of younger people at your shows too, and they're looking up on that stage and they're getting inspired too. And so what advice do you give them? Because it's certainly not easy to do what you do, but it can be done.
Yeah, I mean, the best advice I can give anybody is just, perseverance wins the game, you know, perseverance every time you fall. And also just like an undying belief that what you have is worth it. It's so easy to like, look at all the art that's being created in the world, and every day something new comes out, you know, gazillion things come out every day. And it's really easy to feel like, well, what do I possibly have to offer? You know, like, you know, compared to that. And there's a place for everybody, you know, there's a place for all kinds of different art, and none is like the other. And, you know, so just like reminding yourself that what you have to offer is special, and, you know, just perseverance in that belief is what makes anybody able to succeed.
Oh, for sure. Well, and interestingly enough, and similarly on Drew Pearson Live, or the Ultimate Hail Mary, we ask people their Hail Mary moment, that moment in your life or career where you just kind of have to go for it and it works out for you. I'm wondering what that was for you.
My Hail Mary moment. Which one? You know, I really think that it was, I think one of my biggest moments was after I got kicked off AGT way back in the day. I thought that America's Got Talent was going to be my end all be all. I thought that was my moment where I've made it, and then it wasn't. And I was like humiliated when I got kicked off that stage, you know, and I got the buzzer. It was just awful. I was so embarrassed. And, you know, it really had to face myself and be like, do I have what it takes to get up again after this? Do I have what it takes to step on a stage after being so humiliated? And, you know, that gut inside of you, it will never lead you astray. And my gut just kept saying, you're not done yet. Like, your journey is still, there is more for you here. And, you know, that taught me the importance of listening, always listening to that gut instinct, because it will always let you know when it's appropriate time to close the door and, you know, maybe go a different direction, or if it's time to like really push through the door. And, so yeah, that was definitely my Hail Mary moment.
Yeah. So in this show that we're going to see here, how do you whittle it down to one night set list? It seems like if you wanted to, you could do, you know, a couple of different theme nights, right?
So how do I like make a set list for the show?
Yeah.
You know, this one, I wanted it to kind of be themed around the Artemis album. So I have songs from all my albums in it, but you know, it was kind of fun to really lean into the Artemis theme, and even take some of my older songs and lean them into the Artemis theme. Like, I really wanted this to have a very like strong storytelling feel, because the album accompanied a comic book that I wrote. Yeah. And so the costumes that people see on stage bring the characters to life. The videos that play behind us oftentimes are embodying the world. And like I said, even songs from old albums, we found ways to kind of make them feel like Artemis. And I don't know, it made it a really unique tour. I've never done a tour that kind of followed a very, you know, pretty strong theme. And so that's kind of what helped inform this one. And then other than that, it's always kind of hard to pick the set list of like, what babies tell the right story, what make people feel the right way at the right time. But I think we got it. We nailed it.
Yeah. Well, was there a certain track on Artemis that you were just so excited to give to the world? Or is that like choosing a favorite favorite?
The first one that got me super excited was Artemis. And that's the first song I'd written a bunch. And that's the first song I wrote that I liked in a while. And that was the first song that made it onto the album, that I was like, okay, I can do this. I got this. It gave me that renewed sense of confidence. And that's the song that originally I was just going to call the song Artemis, but then it inspired the whole concept of, oh, the album is Artemis. Like I really want to dive into this whole character of the goddess of the moon and what that means and the symbolism there. And so I think Artemis was probably my favorite song on the album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And going on tour, of course, a lot of people think it's just a whole lot of fun, and it is sometimes, but it's exhausting. But do you get to get out there and do some fun stuff? Like when you come to Texas, are you going to get to do any sort of beer, barbecue, any kind of fun stuff like that?
We really do try. Like on days off, we have, we'll always have a family dinner night, and we'll pick a place, and, you know, it's not mandatory, but most people will come on the whole tour, and we'll go out and get barbecue in Texas, or, you know, like we got barbecue in Kansas City. You know, and also we bring our own grill with us. So a lot of times on days off, we'll just in the hotel parking lot, put up a big feast and have a massive grill out with all of, you know, even like the openers crew and our crew. And it's a lot of fun. It's just team bonding. You know, sometimes after the show, me and, you know, the dancers in the band will go out on the town and find a local bar to just hang at and, you know, relax after the show. So it totally depends. Sometimes we really do just hit the bunks because we're so tired. But I think we've realized more and more so how important it is on days off to connect, because tour is amazing and we're all so close and like a family, but it's really easy to very quickly feel a little bit lost. And, you know, it can be really easy to feel like you disappear and like no one would notice if I didn't come out tonight, you know. So it's so important to make sure that everybody feels included and invited and like they're a part. And I think that's something as a tour we've gotten really good at over the years of kind of learning that people need that. I need it, you know.
Absolutely. Well, you have such a great attitude about all of this, and your outlook on everything is fantastic. And you know, it reminds me on Down to Business with JB and Jamie, we talk about that success mindset that you have to not only get in the business, but stay in the business. But is there something that you kind of tell yourself that kind of keeps you on the right path?
So many things. I feel like I have to work on my mental health like a part-time job. You know, I think that I'm an optimistic person by nature, but I really don't think I am. And it's something that I've worked at, you know, it's a skill almost that I've honed and I continuously work on. And same with like, self-doubt. It's like a muscle I constantly have to try to, you know, overcompensate for. You know, I have to I like literally had a good solid chat with my therapist yesterday about like, I am doubting myself. Like I am really starting to sink in this feeling. And I have to do that every so often to pull myself out of a hole that I can very naturally fall into. And so I just think that for me, I've been through anorexia, I've been through pretty severe depression, and I've been through, you know, and anxiety is a part of my life that comes and goes. And I've learned I've gotten so much better, I should say, at coping in this mind that I have and learning how to, you know, most of the time thrive in this brain that I have and be okay. And so I think that's probably the biggest thing that keeps me going. Isn't like ever a mantra or anything. It's just like continuously checking in and realizing that like today I'm not okay and I need to do something about it. And I need to reach out for a little bit of help. And that's what keeps me going.
Yeah. Well, and that's great that you could talk about that too, because I know there's probably a lot of, you know, fans and friends and people like that that can identify with that. And not a lot of people open up and talk about that kind of stuff. So that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. I figure why not? I felt really alone in it for a long time until I realized, oh my gosh, like close friends of mine, like we were dealing with it like as roommates in college, door to door, and yet didn't have any, you know, we felt so alone. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no one needs to feel alone in that, because probably the person next to you is struggling with something similar, or at least a similar feeling, or has been through something. So I figure, you know, I wanted to talk about it because I think we all feel it in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and then on top of that, music is the great connector. So that has to be one of the most rewarding things in the world, to be able to put something out there that means something to people, right?
Absolutely. You know, and to be able to, I think we musicians get so spoiled because we get to see it in action on tour. You know, we get to see people react to it and smile or cry from stage. And, you know, I have a couple friends that are actors and they're like, we actors don't get that. You know, we work for months on a movie and then it goes out in the world and hear people like it maybe, but we musicians are so spoiled because we get to create something that hopefully makes people feel it, and we get to experience it with them. And that's so cool.
Good. Well, I know with this album, with this tour, you've raised the bar, and do you think about what's next? Because I'm excited to hear what you might have next for us. And do you think about, how can I top it? Or do you just think of, it's going to come out however it's going to come out?
I really try. It's hard not to be like, oh, how do I outdo myself? And there's always that balance of how do you sound like yourself without sounding like your previous self? It's like, I don't know where that line is, but I really do think that I'm not sure where my next project is musically going to go, but I know it's going to be really different. I think I've kind of exhausted in a good way all the things that I can do in this very like niche style that I've kind of created and really stayed true to. And I'm like, you know what, next, I think I'm going to lean really far in a different direction. Like I've thought about doing a rock and roll album, with some hard rock. I've thought about doing possibly really leaning into like a very hip hop direction, which I've never done, so one way or the other, I'm going to go pretty far somewhere else, which is a risky move, but also I feel like it's just time for me to switch it up and try something really new.
Yeah, well, that's kind of the exciting part about creating, right? Is to stretch and do something new all the time.
Absolutely.
And your fans will totally follow you. I know they will. And for now, we're excited to get you back in town. Of course, in Texas and Dallas and Houston, we're going to have you in outdoor pavilions. So it's going to be hot, but it's going to be fun. And so we're excited about that. And then we're going to tell everybody to come out and check it out. And we really, really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you at the show and hopefully having you on again soon.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and for your really good, thoughtful questions. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right. We'll see you here in Texas.
Okay. Bye.
Okay.